I took up guitar when I was about 19. I heard a wonderful album of a solo flamenco guitarist, and I said, man, that's what I want to do. I was drawn to this kind of music because it had a very dark side and a very beautiful side. I liked the Moorish influence in it, and I loved the aggressive rhythms.
He was told by the doctor at age 12, he had asthma so badly his chest was concave. He said, you can run and build up your chest, or you could be a weakling all your life. So he took up rugby, and he was a really good rugby player. He could run faster than anybody. He was really fast. He was, 19? And he got rheumatic fever, and he was in the hospital with rheumatic fever. And at that time he was found he couldn't do rugby anymore. And I think he must have had a guitar before that, and just knew the basics probably, with Bill Lewis, I think, taught him that. But he never really took it up more seriously until after that. And when he found out he couldn't play rugby anymore, he went into a deep depression and would be in his room quite upset and writing poetry. Dale had belonged to this record club and
called Columbia Record.
And she had this wonderful flamenco record of what's his name? Romero's.
Yeah.
And Harry was fascinated with this music. I remember coming home from work and looking at Harry, and he was right in front of this great big radio we had, with his ear right there, playing the guitar, listening to every note and practicing doing it the same as that record. He just was fascinated with it. He taught himself.
Harry used to come to my house with the rest of the family, and Mother would do the driving, and she'd go over the Lionsgate Bridge, and we'd come to my place, and we had a great time listening to music. We'd all sit in the living room, make everything dark, and had all these records that I played. I would definitely say Harry came out of depression with the guitar. Yeah. Because, when you're 19 and you lose the thing that you think is the best thing in life, rugby, and you can't play it anymore, that's a pretty devastating thing to happen. It's almost like being crippled. But he made the best of it, and he carried on, and he was very stubborn about, making sure he got as much as he could and listened to as many records as he could. So he was really, really passionate. He certainly went down more or less for his supper, played for his supper at the El Parador on 4th Avenue.
That's for a few years.
Mm-hmm. He did that for a few years. And it was very smoky. Poor fellow, he had to sit there with all that smoke in there.
I remember being insulted when they say, please don't play so loud, we can't hear ourselves.
Yeah. Played blues, Spanish eyes.
yeah. But it was a true flamenco. It wasn't Spanish eyes, that's for sure. Harry was very passionate about his guitar. And that was in the 65 or so, yeah. And he was always practicing the guitar. He was so passionate about it. And he has always had his ear to hearing the music and trying to get everything just right. And David would do anything that Harry did. And he fell in love with flamenco too, and he wanted to take it up. So the two of them were playing, and they were very, very good together. They formed a duo, and David did very well, but he was more the business type. He managed to get the gigs going, and Harry was more the passionate how to do the music and what should be on stage and everything. David was the backup guitarist, I think we call it. And they traveled all around BC, and
probably the most important thing, I think, he kept Harry going as far as gigs, He's always the organizer. And they actually had filled that theater, the Centennial Theater in North Vancouver. That was their first big gig that they had together. And from there they carried on and did many other things. Across BC they had many smaller gigs, but they were really quite wonderful as a duo.
I was an advanced ballet dancer, but I never worked as a ballerina. I was a ballet teacher. I was a registered ballet teacher for 25 years, and I got my degree in dance, and I worked full time starting in 1973, I think it was, after graduating, and worked full time for the Gladys Forster School of Dance in Toronto. And it wasn't until about 3 years later, she sold her school to me, and I took it over, running the whole. It was a huge school. It was like, it had Highland, it had modern, it had tap, it had, of course, a huge ballet section. And I ran the school for 7 years, and actually I burnt out. I was working 7 days a week, around the clock. I didn't have much time for performing, but I had a lot of time for choreographing, so I was doing a lot of that. I taught Spanish dance. I started Spanish dance in York University with Paula Moreno, and my first few classes with her, it was like fish to water. I was like right in this thing. It was something my mother wanted me to do when I was a little girl. She even bought me castanets when I was very, very young, when I didn't even know how to play them. But anyway, so I got into studying Spanish dance with Paula Moreno, and very shortly then I was invited into the company because I could pick up a lot of the choreography, especially the baile escuela de bolero, and of course I learned how to play the castanets. Paula Moreno had another dancer who was a ballet dancer. Her name was Dorothy Doradea, and the two of us did these choreographies, and Max Miliano was also in the choreography, and that's how I met Max. And later on, I ended up in Max's company, and his company was Los Hispanicos, which actually was where I met Harry Owen. Yes, I met Harry and David. Actually, I saw them in a performance, and then it was probably a few years later that I ended up working with them in the company of Los Hispanicos, and the director of that company was Max Miliano, whom I worked with in Paula Moreno's company years before. It was quite big. I know when I was contracted to do a series of shows, there were 4 dancers, and of course Harry and David Owen playing, and there was Max, so 7 people. So we did a lot of back and forth between Toronto and Montreal. We also went to Edmonton, went to Calgary. So it was really a fun tour. And that's when I got to know Harry, because we'd always end up talking about something. And I found out his mother was a ballerina, and she studied under Princess Astafjeva in England. So that made me very curious about where he came from. Anyway, so we started chatting a lot, and we got to know each other really well, and yeah. That was a pretty good one, because it actually lasted for 9 years, and Harry did all of it. I came in probably on the fifth year. I did 5 years of that, and it was great. We had 6 shows a day. Each show was about 15, 20 minutes long, and we punched in and punched out, and yeah, it was great. Harry and I were thinking of putting our own group together, and we wanted to do a lot of shows together because most of the shows that happened in Toronto, we ended up doing for different people. Like, we were always separated. He would do work for one group and I would work for another group. And it was very, very rare that we could actually work together. And Canada's one that allowed us to do that. Mm-hmm. So, and we got quite used to being able to do it. And we had a wonderful team. We had Carmen.
So if I recall, we were sort of working in different circles, mm-hmm. and I was kind of like one of these little teen prodigy kind of kid dancers, and somehow we ended up in a group together. And because I started dancing with Paula Moreno, mm-hmm. right when I was 8 years old in 1976. So I remember seeing Harry playing for some of the recitals. I remember at Cuadro. I was quite young, and I'm not sure if you were there at that time, but I recall Harry being there, and David Owen as well. And then later on, through like little ad hoc groups, somehow we ended up together, mm-hmm. and I met you through Harry.
That's right.
Right? And we started, you guys asked me to fill in for somebody for Canada's Wonderland. Mm-hmm. And I think I ended up doing 5 or 6 seasons with you guys.
That's right.
Right? And that really was the beginning of our relationship. Mm-hmm. So it was very much like that. We would punch in. I remember our first show was 11:15 a.m.
Yep.
And I would sometimes go on a roller coaster ride to waken up so that I would be awake and vibrant for our 11:15 a.m. flamenco show, right? And we had a lot of fun. We worked on choreographies, or we presented choreographies that Max created. And then, of course, we started to develop our own repertoire.
Max said, you can do whatever you want. It's your gig. So we ended up doing our own shows, our own choreography. We start with something together, and we would end with something together, and we took turns doing the solo. Mm-hmm. All right. So because we had 6 shows in the day, we each had to do 3 solos. So it was fun. It was great.
Also, was at a time when flamenco was still pretty fresh in Canada, especially in Toronto. We didn't have singers.
No.
So we had no singer, and so we had to come up with shows that were very interesting, exciting, and everything. And also this is a major corporation, entertainment corporation. So we had somebody from entertainment coming, checking out our shows, making sure that we were dressed properly, and that we were putting out the kind of show that they wanted, and we did all kinds of things. We danced in snow. Yeah, we danced in rain, because even if it was like just a bit of few drops, it's okay. You can dance. And
our stage was outside, so mm-hmm. we were exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful guitarist, mm-hmm. and he played beautifully, and he had the most beautiful falsettos. Well, we had to compose it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think though, Veronica, from those shows, because so much happens in live performance and in these situations, I think that's really how we developed our very unique improvisational style.
Yeah.
Because we've been separated for many years,
yeah.
and our paths have changed quite a bit in terms of our aesthetics. But when you and I dance, we still find the same lines.
Yeah.
Even when we're improvising.
Yeah.
Have you found that?
Yeah.
So I think, Canada's Wonderland was a big part of that. After that, though, during and after that, though, we became a unit, the three of us, right?
Yeah, we did.
I think we became a unit because, other groups were being formed and stuff like that. And I remember rehearsals
Yeah.
in your
my
basement.
Yes.
With the low ceiling and that.
Yeah.
And Veronica is an amazing dance teacher and an amazing rehearsal coach. And you came up with some really, really great exercises, and I think that's also what developed our work, and to be able to compensate for not having a singer.
Yeah, we did a lot to compensate for that. But when we did have a singer, it was like wonderful, and we had that opportunity on occasion. And one was actually a tablao, the Don Quixote, which had been running for a number of years in Toronto. And when they have a week where they have no performers, they would ask the locals to come in and fill in. And so we were lucky, and actually it was actually 6 weeks after Gareth was born. And I thought, oh, can I do this gig? I need to do this gig. And so we did, and actually we have pictures for that.
Yes.
Yeah. We have Cesar Alvarez, and Cesar, and Harry, Carmen, me.
I think I was about 18.
Yeah.
This was after I came back from Spain, I think. Yeah. Because I went to Spain when I was 16 to 17. Yeah. And my dad took these pictures. Yeah, and just interesting also, so this is Cesar Alvarez, which is the brother of Paco de Leon. And Paco used to sing for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why Cesar was singing here was because Paco had already left.
We were talking about our branding because we wanted to have a name for our work together, and Carmen was part of that. And I said, we need a name that describes the two of us. And we tried several names, and you're the one that came up with Alma de Espana.
Alma de Espana. Just because Harry and Veronica are like, they're not Spanish, but their souls are Spanish. They're so, like everything about the way they behave, they conduct themselves, rehearsals at your place, parties at your place. I mean, every aspect of it was very Spanish. Being around Harry and Veronica always reminded me about times when I would be in Spain, surrounded by my family.
Oh.
Yeah, so their soul is very much de España. And that's, I don't know, it was quite natural. Yeah. And it still is. Your soul is still very de España.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. Thank you for that name. But I think the main reason we left Toronto was because of Gareth. When Gareth was born, we wanted to live in a smaller place. We decided to go towards where I grew up, but I didn't really want to go back to Cornwall. And of course he grew up in Vancouver, and I was ready to go. He brought me to Vancouver, and I just fell in love with it. It was just such a beautiful place. And so we made that decision to go west. And we almost stayed in Vancouver, but we ended up moving to Victoria, which was actually a very good move for us. When I first came out to Vancouver, Dale was telling me there was this thing about first night happening. And actually, that's where I saw Oscar. I saw Oscar with a red suit, and he had blonde hair, and Gary was playing. and they had a band behind them, and that was the first time I saw Oscar, and I was very impressed. I had never met him before, and but after that, I got to know him. I saw Oscar first. I hadn't met Rosario. Harry already knew Victor from years back, it wasn't until we were living in Victoria, could have been the early 90s. Rosario had a show here on the island, I think it was somewhere around Parksville, and Harry and I were invited to be in the show. And there was Gary, and who else was in there? I think Lara was singing, and Oscar was there. So I got to work with all of them.
Victoria is a very special place. It's a home of many artists, of many areas, painters, actors, professional dancers, very high level of training in ballet. The ballet schools here are wonderful. And yeah, there were some very fine artists. Actually, there are many. And they were interested in what we were doing. So they come to class. And before you knew it, we were doing big concerts. And I have to say, I already had I had a job here already lined up to teach ballet since I was a registered ballet teacher, and I worked for the Sinclair Academy of Dance, and Gina was kind enough to let me teach flamenco to her students, and so we started giving them some choreography, and we entered them in the festival, and they were just wonderful. They were really good times. And I still see these dancers today. They're all teaching now.
I would do these workshops for flamenco because our intention was to have a performing company. And the one school had some dancers that were very interested in learning flamenco. And they were basically the founding members of the Alma de Espana Flamenco Dance Company. I started off with 4 dancers, then I had 6 dancers and ended up with 10. And so I was able to choreograph these huge choreographies. I made them all costumes, and I still have them. We did the ritual fire dance, we did everything. We did classical numbers with castanets. And we did, so our productions, we did them here on the island, and we also toured on the Sunshine Coast. We also took our show over to Vancouver. And we were lucky to have, as our guest artist, Oscar Nieto, whom I met earlier. And we also had Angel Romero, and whom Harry knew from way back. So it was quite a strong company. We ended up doing a full tour of the interior in BC. The school sort of happened because I wasn't planning to have a flamenco school at all. But after every show, we'd have so many people wanting to learn flamenco. And I had trained these dancers for the company. I thought, okay, well, might as well start training more dancers. And at one point, we had about 120 students, and we were working quite a bit. So in teaching, I ended up developing a coaching class, and because students wanted to learn how to do tablao. And to this day, they still want to know. And And it was a good time to develop those dancers, and today they're still dancing. We have a lot of strong soloists because of the coaching classes, because they learn the cante, they learn the guitar, they learn the palmas, they learn how to put a solo together, they learn the different parts, they learn how to support one another. So anyways, that's how that evolved. Well, by the year 2000, I had to give up my day job. Last year I had to give up my ballet teaching because it was just taking too much of my time. I had to work more on my flamenco. And I had been teaching for 25 years. So that was time for a change. And it was actually at that point that Harry and I received a joint Canada Council grant to go and study in Spain. We spent 3 months there. And of course, Gareth came with us.
You know, we thought the same way. We were both obsessive with flamenco. We both loved the singing. We both loved the tonalities and the music, and he wanted a dancer. He wanted to work with a dancer, and I was his dancer. He had a choice of many dancers. Let me tell you, he worked with many dancers and very good ones, I must say. I was very lucky that he picked me. And of course, I'd be working, making costumes. I would be doing, sending out press releases and working on posters and going to the printer and getting things done. This is back in the 90s when I didn't have the help. It was ongoing. So the only arguments that we would have would be, why aren't you in the studio dancing when you should be doing it? You know, you're a dancer. But I didn't have time because I had to do all the other stuff to get us on stage. So I said, well, you know what could help? You could write the press releases. So he did the press releases, and he wrote really well. So that was a big help. And of course he helped do the stamping and mailing, and so it was really a little cottage industry here. He was playing guitar, but he was also looking after Gareth, you know, because he loved his son. He loved his son to bits.
I remember Gareth being just a kid and being around because, you know, his parents basically were self-employed and working from home, and him around. And it was really interesting because when I first started taking lessons, he wasn't really interested in guitars. He was interested in doing what 10 or 11, 12-year-old kids do, and you know, everything that kids that age do. And then when I went away for some school and stopped playing for a while and then came back, he had started playing, and the innate ability was very obvious.
From when he was very, very young, he'd walk in the middle of class and ask for pizza. When his father was sick and couldn't play the fandangos for one of my classes, I asked Gareth if he would go and ask his father for a couple of chords and then come back and then play. And that's what he did. He played Sevillanas for my classes because he knew the song, because he could hear me singing it in the house.
That was helpful.
Yeah. Actually, he was singing fandangos when he was 6. I'd be struggling with the words, and he's like going, la, la, la. I think his first gig was for the CD. He was 12, and we did a show. It was a live production.
at the McPherson Theatre, and we had Carancha, um, Paco, Paco Pedrosa. He came from Toronto, and yeah, and also David was in the concert, and I had a couple of my dancers doing backup palmas, and yeah, then we did the whole concert, and we filmed it, and we also recorded it.
It was wonderful. It was really exciting. Lots of music, lots of good moments. Good feelings. Yeah, there was music happening all the time, almost 24/7. My dad would be playing guitar all day and be playing music as well. Sometimes he would sing, but mostly to himself, or if he felt inspired to do it and share it with other people in the studio. And my mom also danced a lot too and taught classes in the studio as well. And I got a chance to see like a lot of people, meet a lot of people taking classes, and just getting to know them as people. And it was really exciting, especially as a little kid. Well, I have only studied with him. I mean, I've taken no, I haven't taken any proper guitar lessons like from a conservator or anything. But so it was mostly just his instruction and just experience playing for classes, dancers, and listening to lots of music as well. Lots of flamenco, only flamenco. So I think I started around when I was 6 years old. And I would just take maybe little lessons with him every so often. And he'd give me a lot of freedom to kind of express myself. He wasn't very, he didn't take control of the situation. He allowed me to kind of breathe into it, which I really appreciate. I got along with my dad. He was probably one of my best friends. I'm mostly a accompanist for dance. But I think I get the most enjoyment out of just playing by myself, actually. So I was 18, I think I started to teach. I started to perform by myself, People were interested, and I think they were supportive too, and they wanted to encourage me to teach, But also I think I had something that they wanted to, so I think it was a good balance. I would say Imina is really good, and she's showing a lot of promise, and she works hard at it. She's very talented. Yeah, I have a lot of hopes for her. I think love for the guitar and the cante. His generosity too, He was a good guy, and he was really supportive, and he was a good player, and yeah, very supportive, very generous and very patient, and family and community and connecting with people on an individual level, seeing people who, loving people who they are and trying to find the positive things about people, and sharing what he loved with them too, right? It's always been kind of natural for me, listening to the music and experiencing it with my own family culture too. And I realize it's not the same, as what's in Spain or someone else's experience, but it was always natural, But it's hard because I couldn't really connect with anyone here. I couldn't share that kind of music with people here because it was foreign to them, right? kind of felt a little bit like an outsider here. But when I went to Spain and shared with what I know, then I felt more welcomed there. And there was no issue about me being not Spanish or non-Gitano. I was just happy to be, creating this music with them. Where I go, that's hard. I just try to listen. I just try to listen really hard to what I'm doing, and just kind of get tangled up in it, without losing my footing. I have some emotions that I kind of want to channel, like get out somewhere, and I feel like with flamenco, it helps me channel those strong feelings that I have, especially when I was young too. It was a real necessary outlet. I guess I got a bit of anger too, and I try to kind of. I'm not thinking about that stuff. It just happens. Because there's more frustration and anger, but I don't think I'm that explosive. I get more sentimental, I think. There's joy. I think there has to be. I also believe there has to be some joy in order to make sense of the sadness too, or to differentiate the two.
The great good fortune of being born into a Canadian flamenco family was really cool. And then seeing how that took off. Harry had falsettos and was definitely capable of playing falsettos and had some amazing technique, but he was very, very rhythmic, and he was very heavy-handed in a really good, solid, rhythmical support way. And then when he would do these falsettos, they would be these really nice little sort of explosive chunks here and there. And then just to see how Gareth maintains that, but also takes a lot of sort of the new way that flamenco guitarists are playing now and adding his own falsettos and embellishments as well. It's really cool seeing this stylistic thing. I remember seeing this show and being really quite transfixed by how everything came together. And I think that's a really common theme for people that have not seen flamenco before, is just how it works. They're not disparate elements. I mean, you can study them that way, but if you do, you're never going to get an idea of how the whole works. And seeing this Alma de Espana show really just blew my mind. It was in a nice theater, and there was a big corps of dancers, and I just remember the impact that seeing something that was this collaborative but also just rhythmically kind of driving, and how everything kind of came together, and how there seemed to be this almost psychic link of how a dancer and a singer and a guitarist could all basically communicate with each other in an unspoken way. And at that point I didn't know if it was just uber rehearsed or if it was just something like this innate skill, kind of like a magical thing that they were able to do. So I basically waited until I had a spate of free time, and I contacted Harry through the phone number on the back of the playbill for that show. And my first lesson was here at their house, and it was really just immediately a welcoming atmosphere. They were very kind. They taught out of their home, and a couple of studios downtown as well. But it was just a really nice, welcoming environment right off the bat. And just right off the bat, Harry started teaching me Soleá, and it was just this really wonderful kind of thing where not only was it actually doing something that didn't make me feel totally overwhelmed, but it was also something that was really cool that I could have as an actual takeaway after one lesson. Harry was having to take a step back from teaching privately because there were other aspects of their school and their business they were focusing on. So like I said, I was feeling kind of disheartened because I was like, I've just found this thing that really speaks to me, and I don't want to have to stop doing it. And then Harry said, well, you can always come and help me play for dance classes. And I mean, tremendously to their credit, I mean, Harry, but also Veronica as the teacher of these dance classes, were tremendously patient, because like I was not the most mature young adult, and I was full of just being like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something in a new community and this is super cool. And I probably caused as much headaches as anything. But that's a really amazing foundation, was to be put in a situation where you have to learn to play for extended periods of time so you don't hurt yourself, play consistently so that the teacher's not having to sort of reprogram what they're showing the students. Like if you can play like a tape recorder again and then again and again, it teaches you consistency, it teaches you pacing. The interesting thing is, you know, you do get to a stage where you can sort of shut off the robotic part of your brain and keep in rhythm and keep with the choreography, but also once you play it for hours and hours on end, you start to be able to figure out how to do interesting creative things within that framework. So that's where a lot of composition ends up coming out for me. So there was Till, Esteban and Till, and then there was Tosh Hayashi, and those are the main guys that really were around the longest. And yeah, they're always basically just solid accompanists, like knowing how to play for dance, knowing how to get volume out, knowing how to basically be consistent. And even though you might vary things slightly, the overall patterns and resolutions and everything, being able to basically make stuff fit, because we were trained to accompany dancers.
He was a giver. He wanted to make everyone love what he was doing. And that's what made it fun for us together, because we both loved what we were doing and we wanted everyone to enjoy it. And when people would ask about it, we were only too happy to share it with them. And it just made it like a bigger family. It kept growing and growing and growing.
So I've seen it, but I was not really aware of the singing until I met Harry, because he had such a connection with it, and that was his beginnings. I mean, he started with accompanying the singing, and so he'd give me these quizzes. Who's singing now? Who's singing now? What's the name of this piece? What's the name of this palo? Oh my goodness, but I loved every minute of it, because it was a journey that I needed to explore. I loved learning, and I still love learning. Well, that actually started way back when when we came here in Victoria, because there was nobody on the island that was singing. And we had Jose, Lara, and Angel Romero in Vancouver, but it was very expensive to bring them over. And of course they were working. So how was I going to expose the singing to the people I was teaching, and also to doing our shows? So I would learn an alegría, I would learn sevillana, I would learn fandangos, and Gareth would be on the floor humming all the words, and he'd be doing a better job than I would be. Right. Harry, he was adamant. He said, you have to teach with the singing. Flamenco is with the singing. And that's how I made myself do it, because it was important. It was important for the students to learn how to navigate through a cante, especially when they're dancing. And also to develop an appreciation for the singing, because a lot of people didn't know what it was. They just thought it was just all this howling, but it wasn't. You know, there was some deep feeling there, the deep emotion that had to be discovered, and I was learning that. It was hard. I mean, I still find it hard, because it's not what I was born into. Amity was one of my students. She started actually when she was 12, maybe 12 and a half. Yeah. It's funny, she wanted to take a workshop in the summer, and it was back in the, I think, 1993, maybe 94, and I had all the classes filled except for the children's class, and she registered for that, and I only had 2 of them. I had Cara Lawrence and her. And I thought, oh, I don't think I'll run this class because there's only 2 people. But then I thought, no, I think I'm going to do it. And because I knew they really wanted it. So I taught them. And it was the best thing I had ever done, because both of them are still doing flamenco today. And they're both really serious about it. Amity has proven herself time and time again. Her dedication and her loyalty and her interest in the art form. She's a wonderful teacher. She's great with beginners. She's a lovely teacher. And she's also a wonderful helper for me. Actually, I think it was in the year 2000, I started, when I went to Spain, I had some of my students take over some of my classes when I was gone, and she was one of them, and she was very successful. Everyone loved her. And we kept it going. I kept giving her some classes, and then I started giving her more work, some office work, and she could help me with the administration. And before I knew it, she could actually run the whole school. And lo and behold, now she's got it. Yeah, I'm very proud of her. And it's nice to be able to hand over a school. I know it's in good hands.
I have a few setbacks. Every year that goes by, I find that I don't have the same strength and the stamina to execute footwork and choreography like I used to. This is when I found out I had COPD, along with a few other physical problems. I wondered why when teaching Bata de Cola became so exhausting for me, breathing was a problem. I'm disappointed that I can't wear my bata anymore. So I asked my daughter-in-law, Denise Yo, a very talented dancer, and she came in to help me, and she wore my bata, and she was able to execute all the things that I wanted to have done in the class. And that was the beginning of something pretty special. I could tell her whatever I wanted and she would execute it. And it's funny, it actually opened the doors for more experimenting, and she was able to create things herself, which actually added to the choreography that we were working on together. Yeah, I don't know what I'd do without her.
Veronica has a very sincere, vulnerable, honest, softer way of working, which I have grown. Don't get me wrong, this woman is a killer. She does everything. She's an artistic director, she's administrator, she's now a singer. She was top bailaora in all of Canada for a long time, and now she's turning to singing in her 70s. But I feel like through Veronica, I learned vulnerability, the importance of connection and family. I just love her. And I think with Veronica, it kind of taught me
sincerity, and also like things didn't always go according to plan and you had to be a family to get through. So that was important for me. Sometimes you need people in your life to juxtapose your strengths. I don't know if you've ever seen Veronica's Solea or Sigueria, but it's different. It's softer. It's more sincere. She almost can't be choreographed because she has to be in that moment, and it's that family, Gareth and Veronica, that bring that to me. So it's a really important connection for me. Gareth is all about feeling and emotional. So having been through many guitarists now, it's Gareth that sets me up for Solea. It's Gareth that sets me up for Sigueria. It's almost like I don't even want to dance those palos anymore with other people because there's something like in that family. They're as Canadian and as white as possible, but they are so flamenco. They don't even speak Spanish, but what is flamenco about them is they're playing from their heart.
It's funny, taking this art form, it's actually become my whole life, and I don't know what I'd do without it. People say, you know, okay, you're not Spanish, why are you doing this? Because I love it. I love this art form. It's an art form that grows, and it's an art form that creates, and it's an art form that builds on family and connection. And I think way back when flamenco was happening and people were suffering, they needed that connection. And I believe that the music is what brings us together.
Once you experience flamenco, it's with you for life. The emotion, the energy, all those things that tap in your innermost feelings, it's something that I really, really do enjoy, and it brings me out of myself.
El frío